This is Terry McDade, aka the Pirate Hunter, and this is a build update on Nigel Wells North Africa group build number 4. The way this is going, this is taking longer than the whole North African campaign took. What happened, to make a long story short? Life got in the way, okay, things like that. Just walked away from it, a lot of other things. So we're back, and the reason why we're doing this is I watched a video from Carlos Mendez a couple weeks ago about finishing builds and things like that, and I thought, you know, I've got all this stuff, I've got everything here, why I better get off my butt and get it done. So what I'm doing is going to go ahead and finish this. I have other builds to do, but I'm going to just make a priority and say, okay, this one's going to get done. I have a few small others that I'm doing that I can work on once I get too tired of this, or however you want to phrase it. What I'm doing, I'm using a bunch of different kits. I'm using 2 from Vulcan, 3 from Master Box, and 2 from Tamiya. I'm using from Vulcan an Ordnance Quickfire 2-pounder British anti-tank gun, Mark 9 Carriage Mark II. I'm using the British 2-pounder Gun Crew, North Africa, metal and ammo shells included. I'm using the Vickers machine gun team from Master Box, North Africa Desert Battle Series, World War II era. Hand-to-hand fight British and German infantry battles in North Africa, World War II era, Kit 1. Sturm Vorwärts. Sorry if you speak German and I just massacred that, because I don't. German Infantry, DAC, World War II era, North Africa Desert Battle Series. That's the final one from Master Box. Then the Panzer Kampfwagen 2 with Combat Crew of 5 from Tamiya. And Military Miniatures, 135th British 8th Army Infantry Desert Rats. I'm also using a Airfix kit that I'll get to in just a minute on that. These, other than the Pygmy Panzer, I reviewed all them on my other YouTube channel that I had when all this fiasco started with my life and YouTube and Google and everything else. I did all the reviews of them, and if you'll go to that channel, which is PIR8 HNTR, Pirate Hunter, and look at it, you'll see all the reviews of all the figures that I did when I started that, and also the review of the Airfix kit. So what this involves, now here's where the Airfix kit comes in. This is the Airfix kit. As you can see, it's been sitting out in the shed getting covered in dust and dirt and crap and crud and corrosion for quite a while. And I bought this because I wanted to use this with this as part of that diorama. Well, when I got this, I didn't really know what I was going to get. As you can see, the walls are just a mite thin on it. It's a snap together kit and fall apart kit, things like that. It's just a thin, cheap plastic kind of thing. I know when I did the review on it originally, somebody commented that this was built as kind of like just a gamer type setup or something like that. The scale on this kind of falls between 1/32nd, 1/35th somewhere. If you look at the size of the door from right here to right here, it's big. Figures out to about an 8-foot door, something like that. But if you look here, here's where the foundation is, and it appears to be a solid concrete type foundation. So if you go from the top of the foundation to here, it's a little more reasonable on height. So I bought this and I thought, okay, this is what I will use for my master plan for what I'm going to build. I didn't want to use exactly this, so I thought, okay. Now, one thing I've noticed in doing some of the research on stuff for this build is if you look at the walls here, You'll notice these are done in really nice, well-shaped bricks. Well, I got looking at some videos, German War series, I believe it is, German War Stories, I think, YouTube videos, and I got looking at the ones in North Africa. Well, in North Africa, a lot of it was rather flat, hard ground, it appears, with a lot of flat rock on it. Now, this is an outpost being built someplace out in the middle out or nowhere at a crossroads, let's say. And they are not normally going to have the dollars to have truckloads of bricks show up and 3 or 4 cement trucks show up all the time to do cement and things like that. So I kept looking, and I found a couple of pictures that are of the South African troops that were engaged in the battle in North Africa. One of which shows 3 soldiers, and one of them is about to throw a grenade through the window. And the wall where they're at has the coating on it, and underneath it is where it's come off. It's a gray, rough, coarse material. I don't know if it's concrete or not. It was in a battle in a village somewhere. But it didn't, it's in black and white, so I couldn't obviously tell the color, but it didn't have anything other than just that with the outer coating put on it. Now, there was another picture in there that shows, taken by combat photographers, these were taken by combat photogs, that shows 2 South African soldiers capturing a German soldier. And when you look at the wall where he's walking out, the corner of the wall, where the coating's been blown off like this, it isn't built of bricks, it's built of rock in there. And it's different size rocks, flat rocks, square rocks, rectangular rocks, ones that are bigger than this, some small flat rocks. And there was a lot of spaces in between that was just filled with whatever they filled it with, concrete or whatever they used to build it. And the coating, I noticed on some of the walls, the pictures of the walls there, was a rough finish, not a smooth finish. And believe me, they're not, when they're doing something like this, they're not really in real life, where it's out there somewhere like that, going to do a perfectly smooth finish on. Put it on, and it will be kind of rough. And when they painted this stuff, they obviously probably didn't have a compressor. 99% of how it was painted would have been with paintbrushes, rollers, things like that, which would give you a rougher texture over the material that you coated the outside of the wall. I want to call it adobe, but I don't know what they call it in Northern Africa. So that would give you a different texture on the wall when they painted it. So it wouldn't be a smooth, easy finish on it. So what we did, using that as our basic pattern, we went to the foam board. Now, this the actual one that I'll do on this is someplace between the size of the gray plastic Airfix and this. This really isn't a whole lot bigger than that Airfix one. So, but I used the foam board and the T-pins because that way I can move and shape and do whatever I want with it. If I want to lengthen a wall, shorten a wall, move a wall somewhere, do something different with the floor on it, I can do whatever I want. It's really easy and simple. I know the Train Tutor does a lot with this, and I've seen one diorama that Cohen C did using this stuff. So I thought, well, I could use that, or I can be a real glutton for punishment and beat my head against the wall because it'll feel good when I quit, and make it out of clay. So I thought, well, we got to figure this out and see if we're biting off more than we can chew. But once I wrapped my head around it, that this really isn't a giant build it all at once kind of diorama. It is small pieces, just kind of like eating an elephant, builds. You've got the figures, which are I'll get a lot of practice on painting figures, and I've watched a lot of videos on how to do them. You've got that. I don't know if I'll use the Pygmy Panzer on it, but if I do, that's still not a major project. That's just another simple small build because it's not very big, not very complex on it. The gun and the cruise are not really a whole lot. They're just a whole lot of small individual little builds. This is the big portion. But I have a bunch of clay, and I got thinking about it. If I was going to build one of these, and out where I was building it, my natural building material was stone, what would I build it out of? Stone. What would I probably build the floor out of? Is stone. So if you put the clay down, and while it's drying up on it, you can put your lines in for the patterns on the stones, things like that. The walls, that's no big thing. You can, they're not really very thick. Figure at 1/35 scale, half inch is going to give you a 16-inch wall. And I watched on the same German war series, they showed some German soldiers standing by a wall, and that wall was between 18 inches and 2 feet thick. Now, something this size probably would not be that thick of a wall. If it would be probably 10 inches to a foot thick, possibly, because it insulates heat during the day and insulates cold at night. It keeps the cold outside at night. So if I go with a half-inch thick wall, that'd give me a 16-inch wall, 16-inch thick wall, or I could go even down to a 3/8 of an inch or something like that to give my wall thickness. So it's really not that hard. And also, when you start putting indentations in it or things like that, as you try to chip something out of that hard clay, it will give you a little more of almost like an impact looking hole on it, or I can put them in when it's wet. I can do a lot of experimenting on this. I'm not going to let it schedule drive me. I have a tendency to be a type A personality on that. So I can sit and play with this and decide how I'm going to do it, what I want to do with it. As you can see, there's all sorts of marks and drawings and measurements and things like that in there. That shows the different walls. You see where it leaked on it, stuff got spilled on it, things like that. Different things that I've done on it, different patterns I've laid out on it. So it's a cheap and easy way to do something like this to figure it out. So this is the Nigel Wells North Africa group build number 4 update on it. One short waffle here, and that I have noticed that the troll migration and hatching is in full swing. So I'll just let it go at that. So again, this is the Pirate Hunter. Go check out my other channel for the other videos I did. And to quote the great Jerry Springer, take care of yourself and each other.